Hello friends, it's Lala. I am here today for another overly specific book recommendations video, and I am surrounded by thrillers. So I pulled all of the thrillers off my shelf because I was planning on doing an overly specific book recommendations. I asked you what you wanted the topic to be, and the majority of requests had something to do with mysteries or thrillers, which makes sense. Spookthon's coming up, it's also fall, we're reading darker stuff. Also, I don't think I've done a thriller recommendation since like last year, but rather than just kind of repeat myself and just list all of my favorites, I'm gonna go through the requests that you sent in and try to give at least one book recommendation for that thing. I haven't planned out any of the recommendations, so I might not have the most eloquent synopsis at the ready. But let's begin with the very first one that has the most upvotes, and it says mysteries with unreliable main characters or unpredictable endings. And I like that you put those two together because I feel like a lot of times I get asked for recommendations for unreliable characters, but you don't want to go into a mystery knowing that it's an unreliable main character. So I will go ahead and tell you some of the most shocking plot twists that I experienced. Some of them might be because of an unreliable narrator, maybe something totally different. Also, I know I'm using the word thriller in the title, but these do span mystery, thriller, horror. So some of the most shocking plot twists for me exist in I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh, which is about a woman and grief, and there's a dead child and a police investigation. It's kind of slow, but in my opinion, the payoff is ridiculous in a good way. Another shocking plot twist for me is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. Any of these shocking things for me might not have been shocking for someone else, so it's totally subjective. But this has a very vague synopsis for a reason. It follows marriage and women and mysterious things. I swear, for some of these I'll give you a better synopsis, but for some, like, you can't know that much. Another shocking one for me is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This seems like a pretty straightforward story about a husband and wife who are murdering people for fun. They seem like a normal couple and they're just killing people. And you think, okay, that's it. High intensity thriller. But there are some twists and they are good. I guess I would also have to say the good old classic Gone Girl. If you still to this day are unaware of what this is or the twist in it and why it kind of took the thriller genre by storm, definitely pick it up before you get spoiled, because it is one of the most well-crafted books. I know there's so much hype about Gillian Flynn. I know Gone Girl doesn't work for everybody, but this truly like re-sparked my enjoyment of thrillers, and kind of is one of the reasons I started this whole channel. So highly recommend. I also can't not mention Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, because this has one of the craziest plot twists of all time. I gave it 5 stars. I know it's polarizing. It's a love or hate situation, but if you have a chance of loving it, like, give it a try, because it might be one of the best things you've ever read. Next, someone asked for tight-knit friend groups doing spooky stuff. I feel like this wasn't specifically asking for mystery thrillers. This could be a whole overly specific thing on its own. However, I do have some recommendations for thrillers that do this. One of them is If We Are Villains by M.L. Rio. This is a group of university students, a very close friend group, and a death, and they have weird relationships and they're doing some weird things. The cover's very spooky. I would also recommend Bunny by Mona Awad. I don't know if you would, yeah, I guess it's a friend group. It's more of a cult. This clique of girls is doing some very strange rituals that go beyond realistic fiction, and it was incredible. I would probably also recommend First We Are Four by Alexandra Sirawi if you're looking for more YA. This group of friends has a secret society. They basically found a dead girl. They're keeping secrets It's about revenge, death, and rebellion. So hell yeah. Next, somebody said boarding school. Again, this could be a broader recommendation section, but if we're talking thrillers, I would give you All These Beautiful Strangers by Elizabeth Klefoff. I actually can't remember if this is a boarding school or just a prestigious private school, but there's an elite society in here, a secret society that the main character gets involved in. There's a lot of family secrets and a dark legacy involving her family. Highly recommend. Another boarding school one I have here is called People Like Us by Dana Mele. This takes place at a school called Bates Academy, and a dead body is found, as apparently many thrillers begin. I also got asked about books with games, and this also has that, because the main character is kind of being blackmailed. There's like this computer scavenger hunt at a boarding school. Pretty cool. If we're talking about games now, switching over to that, I would also recommend Four Letter Word by Krista Desir. There's basically this new girl at school. This again is YA, as were the last couple I mentioned. And this new girl infiltrates this group of friends and invents this game called Four Letter Word. Each team, boys versus girls, gets a word, and the other team has to find out what that word is by any means necessary. I got a lot of requests for books set in spooky houses, so allow me to recommend my favorite thriller of the year, The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, which involves a nanny going to a smart home and living in this smart home with these weird children. Bad things start to happen, and I love a mix of like, is the spooky thing happening because of a paranormal thing, or is it a realistic thing? That is also part of The Missing Years by Lexi Elliott, which has to do with a spooky house and like, is it realistic or not? This follows a woman who just inherited a Scottish manor, and weird stuff is happening around the property. Animals won't come near it. She has this claustrophobic feeling inside the house, and things start to show up where they shouldn't. There's a lot of rumors around the town, and it was that very ominous house. Spooky house. Another spooky house book is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This isn't a house, it is an apartment complex, and there are weird things happening. We're following a main character who has been hired as an apartment sitter, and other apartment sitters have gone missing. She is trying to solve that mystery, but the residents and the apartment itself seems to not want her to solve that mystery. Next, I got asked about Insular mysteries, which I think is what I'm trying to describe when I say that I love isolated mysteries. Basically, a book that takes place just in one main location. It has a limited cast of characters, and it's all like this one spot, which is kind of the case for, I mean, these, because they're spooky houses. But I would also recommend to you No Exit by Taylor Adams, which takes place at a truck stop. There's a winter storm, and these people are snowed in and get stuck somewhere. There's a child found in a cage in the back of a vehicle, and it's what occurs after that discovery. I also have to recommend The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, which I've talked about a lot. Honestly, if you regularly consume my content, you're here for every video, you've heard of all of these books already, so I'm sorry. This follows a family who's staying in a cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and these people show up and they need help saving the world, basically. Again, I love thrillers that have some confusing factor, some weirdness, some otherworldly or paranormal thing, and this had that. Perfection. Next up, I got one that says introductory thriller recommendations for someone who's scared of too many things, and that's a difficult thing to cater to. I think I get asked a lot about mystery books for beginners, and I don't really know where to go with that. Here's what I think would be accessible for you is books that revolve around somebody spying on other people, and domestic thrillers. I think domestic thrillers are the easiest thrillers to get into because they're the most like, say, a contemporary book. They follow a family or a couple or a neighborhood, and there's a lot of like interpersonal drama. So So these are ones that have to do with like neighbors spying on other neighbors. I think we've all heard of The Woman in the Window, which follows a woman with agoraphobia who is looking out her window. So from the safety of her own home, which I feel like could work for somebody who is scared of reading a lot of things. She sees something she shouldn't is basically the synopsis, and things start to expand from there. If you liked The Woman in the Window or you want other spying on neighbor type books, I would also recommend Watching You by Lisa Jewell. So this book has an entire neighborhood of people. There's a teacher and a neighbor who's in love with him, and then a student who thinks he's not as good as he seems, and then a son who's spying on everyone. Just know that there's lots of secrets, there's lots of interesting characters, and they all find out things about each other by spying on each other. This one is similar as well. I just finished this. This is the most recent mystery I read. It's called Someone We Know by Sherry Lapina. This also has a ton of characters and a mystery. There's a woman who's been murdered. At the same time, there was this teenage boy breaking into people's houses. His mom felt a lot of guilt and sent out anonymous letters apologizing to these people. It sets off a chain of events where all these people are involved in all of these different things, and they're all very interested in finding out what each other is up to. I love a good tight-knit mystery. The thing with starting with mystery thrillers is I would just recommend reading something you're kind of used to reading already, just with an added mystery element. So like if you read a lot of romance already, I would recommend one of K.A. Tucker's more mysterious books. This is He Will Be My Ruin. This follows a woman who is looking into her friend's suicide. She is questioning if that's what really happened, and she's looking into what her friend was up to the last couple weeks of life and the men that she was involved with. If you like reading paranormal romance, maybe check out something like The Missing Season by Gillian French, which involves this seemingly paranormal town, this monster living in the woods, and a new girl discovering the truth about the monster. Next, somebody said a thriller that's not a mystery. And I'm going to recommend a book I didn't technically love, but I would recommend because I know a lot of people absolutely love The River at Night. This is by Erica Ferencik, and it follows a river rafting expedition. There's a group of women who go and their boat gets overturned. They have to survive. There's like scary things in the woods. There's maybe people out there. I don't think there was anything mysterious about this. There was nothing you're trying to solve that you have to like think too much about. It was just high action. Family Secrets Involving Sisters is the next one. And again, I feel like you're more looking for a contemporary recommendation, but I do have some thriller ones. I would highly recommend Emma in the Night by Wendy Walker, which involves two sisters who go missing. One of them returns like 3 years later, and the one who returns home has a whole story of what happened to her and where she's been, but there's a psychologist who doesn't believe what she's saying and needs to dive in deeper to the mystery of where her sister is. I would also highly recommend The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. Basically, there was this family tragedy. These sisters' mother was killed and their father left devastated. We follow one of the girls years and years later. She is now a lawyer just like her father was, and she experiences another tragedy, which makes her look back on what happened when she was younger and finding out the truth about that, and also solving like the current day mystery and how they connect. Then I got one that says I need more books about the ocean, where the ocean is the main focus of the story. I don't know that I have one that like the ocean's the main character or something. I would say Let Me Lie by Claire McIntosh, which follows a woman struck with tragedy, and she's finding out what really happened to her parents, who everyone believes both killed themselves at different times. She doesn't quite believe it, and she's diving more into what happened. You can clearly see there's an ocean on it as well. The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, which isn't one of my favorites, but I know a lot of people love this book, and the one thing that bugged me about it, other people don't care about. So I would recommend this to you because it takes place on a cruise ship. There's a woman on a cruise. She sees a woman go overboard or hears a woman go overboard, but there doesn't seem to be anyone missing on the boat and nobody believes her, and it makes her question herself and what's really happening. Then I got a request for books with days that repeat themselves, like Neverworld Wake or Evelyn Hardcastle. So, already spoiled my recommendation. For books where time isn't linear, I would recommend The 7.5 Deaths, or just The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, depending where you live, which is one of the most intense, like, need to focus murder mysteries I've ever read, and it's got that extra speculative thing I love. Another book where time isn't quite linear. I want to recommend Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I know this is a different vibe. This is also more sci-fi, but I think if you like those things and you want some sci-fi, I'll give it a try. It involves a man who is in a life he does not remember. So, multiple realities happening. I guess I would also recommend Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. I know this has mixed reviews even from me, and I know this is more contemporary than thriller, but there is like some nice romance and there's some nice mystery in here. Also, time is not necessarily linear in here. It has to do with a couple and amnesia. This is one of the most memorable, honestly, serialized books I've ever read, so I still have to recommend it. And that's it. I don't know how many recommendations were in there. I don't know if you learned about anything new that you didn't already know. I don't know if I well explained anything to your qualifications, but I hope you'll read something I recommended. I hope you're participating in Spookathon. Maybe you'll pick something up from here for that, and I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching.